Hi guys, welcome to another Pie and Bell art class. Again, we're at lockdown, so I'm doing another couple online. But if you'd like to come to our regular classes that are going to start up as soon as possible, please have a look in my bio. So this week we're doing an oil pastel fruit tart. The first thing we're going to do is draw out our picture in pencil and then just map out any little white areas. This will help us avoid them a bit as we're going over. Sometimes we will go over them and it's not the end of the world. It just gives us a bit of an idea. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in our base colours of all our fruits. So basically whatever colour you think is the closest in your set. So I'm just using the same colour for some of them, even though the colours of them are slightly different. I didn't have a base colour that was very close to those grapes, so I've used purple, and same with the little blackberry, I've used navy, just because it's a similar colour and I know I can adapt it out. And then the front ones, I'm using that yellow ochre, the same as the base, but I'm going to make them brighter. Now what I'm doing is leaning against a piece of kitchen towel so that I don't smudge what I'm doing as I'm going across. And I'm literally going to work on one fruit at a time, and I'm going to literally do light and dark. That's all you want to do. So I'm going to put darks where I can see shadows and lights where I can see a light source. The light source is definitely coming from the left in this picture, so all the light will be on the left hand side of the fruit. And I want you to really concentrate on whether the light is shiny like on the grapes, or if it's a kind of sheen like on these fruits that I'm doing right here. And that will be the difference between whether you merge the colour into the white or leave the white completely bold. Now I'm going to use brown as my darker colour on this red strawberry. However, when I get down to that strawberry on the right hand side, I use navy so that you can see that you can use two different colours and it gives you a similar result. It's just giving you a darker tone. Now if you don't like that kind of real heaviness of the darker tones you're putting in, you can see like on this little fruit I put the navy in to make that little berry darker, but then I will add red over the top of it and that will bring that darkness back into a red tone. So you can see there I'm adding red. So it is a back and forth manoeuvre that you're going to do. You're going to add the colour to make it darker, but if you feel like it goes too much like that colour, too much like navy or too much like brown, you can re-add your original colour over the top to bring it back up to that. It is a real back and forth motion. The only colours that we have a little bit of issue with are white, because I think on the blackberry I do use the white over the top because it's such tiny little dots of white, and I found it very difficult working around them. But when it comes to it, you will just have to make your own mind up as to whether you put the white on after. The problem with putting the white on after is they're never quite as shiny and luminous as when you leave the white as completely on its own. The other thing to think of is we've got multiple red berries there, we've got two purple grapes together, and we've got two peachy coloured fruits down the bottom right and two kiwis on the bottom left. All of these have to be separated. You can't just continue the colour across, because then it will just look like one, like that purple is looking right now, one continuous weird shaped fruit. You've got to break them up, and the reason you break them up is dark and light. So as soon as you see two fruits that are similar colours together, there has to be a reason why you can tell one's in front of the other, and usually that's because of light and dark, just light and shadow. One will be slightly darker at the point of them touching and one will be slightly lighter. Now I am using blacks in this, and I am being as careful as I possibly can be with the black, because it is a very tricky colour to manoeuvre. But I found with that blackberry I didn't have any really dark purpley colours. I only had the navy, and the navy wasn't quite dark enough to give me that real deep dark colour that I wanted, so I did use black in it. But again, you will notice that whenever I use black I am very, very careful not to spread it into any of my bright colours, because then it will dull them out. And now I'm just trying to go back and forth and get all those lovely different colours in those grapes. I think the grapes are the things that I spent the most amount of time on, mainly because they are the shiniest objects there, and so they have interesting light sources, like that big kind of beam across the middle of that I did in peach, and they also have interesting colours on them. So you can see here I changed my mind about the blackberry and I went across it, and then I added the white in afterwards, which I found was a lot easier because I wanted to get that mid-tone. There's a black and a white, but there's also this kind of mid-tone of a bluey purple, and I thought I'm going to get that first and then I'm going to apply the white, rather than trying to create that colour around the white, which was a little bit too tricky. I also realised these little berries there, I've got a kind of orangey tone to them, so I added a bit of orange in there. And you can see there with the grapes, I can see how the left one is slightly darker at the point of contact, so I was getting that in there. And again, changing up these colours, going back and forth with the purples and the reds. It's an interesting colour on those grapes because they kind of go from a browny colour at the front to a kind of deep mauvey colour to a kind of almost black when they're in shadow. And then you are definitely looking at which points are shiny, as in completely white, and which points are a softened shine. You can see the little tiny bright white lights on the grapes, and then there's like also kind of below those bright white sources there's kind of a reflective light that has got a slight hint of purple in it or pink, and so you're trying to create those different tonal values in there. I'm also kind of trying all the colours there. I was trying a bit of pink, a bit of blue, because the reason is with oil pastels you can actually kind of take them out if it doesn't work, so don't ever feel kind of fearful of what's going on. Now I'm trying to make the colour of the kiwi fruits, which is a very pale kind of yellowy green, so I'm adding green and then I'm adding yellow, and then I'm adding a little bit of white over the top. Now I'm swapping out between the vibrant yellow and the yellow ochre, which has got a bit of red in it, because it gives me that kind of dirtier. I'm not trying to make a very, very pastel green. I wanted it to have that kind of hint of dirtiness in, so I've added a little bit of yellow ochre in there too. And I also use that kind of khaki browny colour around the kind of outer middle area there, you can see, just to dirty up that kind of joining area where it's almost translucent. So it kind of brings it to the colour underneath, so you can see that it's kind of a little bit sheer. And I'm always going back and adding bits as I'm going, and also you will notice that once I've done the next piece of fruit, sometimes I have to go back and adapt the other fruit to join, because I've kind of got to the point where I've left it and thought that's the end of that bit of fruit, but I didn't know what was coming beneath it, or I hadn't started on the thing beneath it. So what I did was kind of left it and then would have to come back in and join them up like there, like the little bit there. Now doing this, you have to be very careful that you have one side of your paper stump, or you just keep using different paper stumps. What I tend to do is use one side for deep colours and another side for lighter colours, and I find that helps out a little bit so that you can go back and forth a little bit easier. So you can see now I'm bringing in these different tonal values of the peach. I think I found that quite tricky, the peach, because I didn't want to take away that lovely kind of yellowy colour that I had in there, but I definitely needed to separate these two out. So I started adding some dark colours, but I wanted to keep the bulk of it that lovely yellow ochre colour. And now I'm just trying to get those shapes in there. Once we get down to this base, the actual kind of pie base, the little pastry base, really all I'm going to do is texture it, but keep in mind that it goes from light on the left hand side through to dark on the right hand side. It does have some kind of reddy reflections because of the fruit above, so I'm going to make sure that I keep those kind of lighter colours on the left hand side, the deeper on the right, but I'm also going to try and bring in some of those kind of reds and oranges that I can see as we're going across. As you can see there, I had a bit of a dirty paper stump. Be aware when you're using paper stumps that you don't dirty up your colours too much. I mean, luckily with this kind of base it was going to be loads of texture and different colours anyway, so I wasn't overly worried about it. But if you were using a dirty stump on, say, your kiwi fruit that was lovely and light and beautiful, you might find that you've got a big dark smudge on there if you don't clean it in between. And you can see now I'm just going to add dark colours and light colours randomly, but much more dark to the right hand side and much more light to the left hand side. And now I'm going to bring in some interesting colours like that orange and that pink, and all I'm going to do is keep creating more and more texture, keep adding. And the best way of doing this is, you're probably watching this on a slightly smaller screen, and when you look at something further away on a smaller screen you can definitely capture the light and dark. You can kind of start to program your eyes to look through the image a little bit so that you can see light and shadow a lot easier. Kind of blur your eyes almost a little bit and you will see light and shadow rather than colour. So colour's obviously very important to get that colour in there, But the most important thing is to get that light and dark in there. Even if you get the colour slightly wrong, it's actually better if you get the light and dark structures going on, because that's what will make your image look 3D. Also, on the base there, if you notice with the white, and I think I come in with the yellow in a minute as well, I use some of them on their side. When you're using a pastel on its side over the top of already there being pastel there, you get that kind of rough, kind of a little bitty kind of pattern going on. It does it itself, you don't even have to really try, so that's always lovely. You can see there, using it on its side again, and that will give you that kind of random pattern, which it almost does for you without you even having to try. Now I start bringing in some darker elements in that little bit, just to separate those three front peach segments out. But apart from that, I took very little artistic license on this. I tried to copy the colours and everything I saw as is. I hope you enjoyed this week's class, guys. Hopefully we'll be getting back to our regular classes, and we'll do this one when we start up again. But I will speak to you soon. Okay, bye guys.